'Twas the week before Christmas, and flying north in the sled was a very special visitor. Santa's big brother, Fred.
Mr. Claus, welcome to the North Pole.
Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, ho ho ho! Welcome to our channel, Paws On Animation, and our holiday podcast.
Yes, and today we're covering the live-action movie, Fred Claus.
One of Rascal's favorite holiday movies ever.
Yes, watch it every year.
Now, Vince Vaughn, who's hilarious, stars in the story of Fred Claus, the older brother of Santa Claus. Yes, this is true.
Yes.
And he's forced to help him prepare things for Christmas Day for the world. Now, it sounds like a strange concept, but it really ends up being one of the most wholesome Christmas movies ever made.
Yes.
And funniest.
Yes. But before we start with that, be sure to like, subscribe, and click notification bell on future podcasts and Well Pause videos.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, for your support, and subscribing. It means a lot to us.
Yes.
You're awesome.
Yes.
So this is one of those movies back in the early 2000s, late 90s and early 2000s, where Joel Silver was producing a lot of family movies. And Fred Claus is one of those movies. This was produced in conjunction with Jesse Nelson and David Dobkin. I don't know much about them, but Joel Silver I'm very familiar with.
Right. And I think at the time this movie came out, it was given a red carpet premiere and was treated as a big deal. But as years went on, it kind of was unfortunately forgotten for a lot of people. And we're not really sure why, because we only found about the movie fairly recent, like years ago. It hasn't been like 10 years or 20 years.
Fairly recent years ago. Guys.
Right. Very recent amount of years. So maybe 5 at the most. Maybe slightly longer, I think.
Oh, it's longer because we've seen this every year. It's probably been about 8 years. Honestly.
Okay, then it makes a little longer than I thought. Yeah. But it's a shame that people do not talk about this movie more or haven't seen it, because maybe they were thrown off by the idea that it was going to be a parody. And I guess partially it is, but really watching it, it does feel like a classic Christmas movie, but with a more comedic twist on it. Because usually you hear the brother of Santa, and it's usually Krampus, and it goes horribly wrong. This was the first time they did something like this, and what if just his brother was just some average guy?
Now, this is actually a story written by Jesse Nelson, one of the producers, and Dan Fogelman. And what's really interesting about this, if you think about it, is during that time there were a lot of Santa movies out, like this one with Tim Allen.
Oh, the Santa Claus.
Yeah, and you can think of others. And I think probably for others seeing this, they thought it was going to be the same type of movie, but they couldn't be more wrong. First off, it's just a one and done. Please never make a sequel.
Right.
And number 2, you have Vince Vaughn, who has a different style of humor than Tim Allen.
Yeah.
The the casting here is also outstanding. You have, as we mentioned, Vince Vaughn, Paul Giamatti, who plays his brother, Miranda Richardson, Rachel Weisz from the Mummy movies, more, but that's what you'll remember from the most. Kathy Bates, Kevin Spacey, Elizabeth Banks, John Michael Higgins, even Ludacris. This had a great star cast, and the best part is every single person worked well together. They really had a vibe where they were meshing, and it was genuine. It really seemed like this could be a real story.
Right.
It didn't seem like anyone was acting. That's what impressed me the most about this movie.
And there was so much care put into this, and it's something you would think would have that much care into it, because you look at now and how much Hallmark and other companies and Netflix have just churned out Christmas movie to Christmas movie, the same tired old formula, but it works for an audience because there are people that genuinely look for those movies. We kind of don't have a lot of movies that stand out like this anymore, whether live action or animated. Majority of them, the last really good movies we had for animation was Klaus, and then for live action recently at least was Candy Cane Lane, where it tried to do something different with his concept. And I think Fred Claus should be really more appreciated for the fact that they really did something different, and it wasn't treated as this was a farce and a joke. It was a joke in a way, but it was more just poking fun at the idea of just the absurdity of this, but it's still sincere.
Another thing that stands out about this, 2 things I should say. One, it was well received at the box office. It had $100 million budget, and it recouped $97.8 million in the box office. And I'm sure it sold them up a lot more in DVDs.
Yeah.
That's how we have seen it and we actually own it.
Right.
The movie runs 116 minutes. It's not too long. It's almost kissing 2 hours. It's got a great soundtrack headed by Christoph Beck. And the music in the movie is really good. It really fits.
Yes.
Every scene is put in there. They've got some hilarious scenes regarding the music, especially one with Ludacris the Elf, who's the DJ.
Yes.
He's playing the same freaking song over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and he drives Fred crazy. And that's one of the funniest scenes in the entire movie. It's one of the best, and hopefully you're seeing it right now.
Yes.
And these scenes like this are what makes this stand apart. So we want to tell you a little more about the story itself. First, I want to point out that Vince Vaughn is from Chicago. And whenever he stars in a movie, 90% of the time the movie takes place there. So this takes place in Chicago. And his brother lives in the North Pole, which I thought was hilarious. They both were still living in places that have really cold climates.
Right. They still found a way to make it match.
Right.
And I love the idea is like, your brother is Santa Claus, probably the most famous living person in the world. And most don't even believe he exists, but he does, and is literally treated like an extra business thing he's made to deal with the government, and he's the big shot, and Fred is the brother that's always in his shadow, and really, it was unintentional, and I think it's hilarious that it was like no different when you have a regular brother and this, without the magical elves and everything.
So it's kind of like a dichotomy where he's the brother that succeeded St. Nicholas or Nick, and Fred is the one who didn't. He's always kind of got things going. He doesn't tell the truth a lot.
Right.
He's on the naughty list.
Right.
And he's Santa's brother, and he has a girlfriend that wants to be serious with him, but he's playing game. He loves her, but he's a player, and I don't mean a player as in terms of dating other women. He just can't get his act together.
Right.
And then he's got a kid that looks up to him that he's really good with, and you know that he cares about people, but he can't just get his act together. He gambles a lot.
Yeah.
So this is how he ends up at the North Pole.
Right.
He needs money to pay off a gambling debt because people are chasing him and they want to take him out. No, it doesn't get violent or anything like that. But he calls up his brother and tells him, and this is how he works. Oh yeah, you know, I'm gonna let you do something for me. I'm gonna let you give me $5,000, and then I'm gonna take that $5,000. I'm gonna turn it around into $50,000, and then I'm gonna give you back, and I'm gonna let you allow me to do that for you for the holiday. And you're just like, what
are you talking about?
And then this is Saint Nicholas. He loves his brother so much. Okay, let's start going. And the wife was like, no.
He said, you're going to have to learn some tough love. He said, I'm a saint. Tough love is difficult for me.
So this is how he ends up at the North Pole. Before he gets there, he pisses off the girlfriend who breaks up with him. Because of
everything.
Again, his things that he does, he can't get his crap together. Another of the funny things is it's her birthday, and he told her he was going to take her out. And he didn't know where to take her. And suddenly he's assigned for Bonsai Palace, not knowing it's a sumo wrestling place full of dudes and sweat and craziness.
And they eat sushi.
And that's when she breaks up with him. So he's there, and while he's there, you can tell that they're trying to repair the relationship. The mom and dad turn up. The mom always has favored Nick. So you've got those family issues there.
Right.
Then you've got another sub-story where Willie, the elf, is in love with Elizabeth Banks' tall blonde elf. And some of the cinematography in here quickly is very good because you see people that you know, they are tall, but they've made them look like they're elves.
Yes.
This is prior to
the controversy with that Snow White movie.
But it's done really well. No one's making fun of anyone. It's just done really well. You can tell a little bit sometimes where it didn't quite mesh, but for the most part, the cinematography for that is done very well.
True.
So
and it is beautiful to look at the whole movie when they do the scenery.
So quickly, let's tell them about as we said, are trying to patch things up about the scene where they have the support group for the Brothers of Famous Stars.
Oh yes, Brothers Anonymous. And it's like getting a little close to the end of the movie where Fred goes back. He's paid off everything, and he kind of just leaves after they had a huge falling out. And when they get there, it's literally what it sounds like. It's their version of Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous,
and they actually have the brothers of famous people in the movie.
Right, and there was a group for all these brothers and how they kind of vent and tell about their frustrations and their feelings of being the shadow of their more famous brother or brothers. And it's one of the funniest and best scenes ever in a holiday movie.
And the three big ones that stood out were Frank Stallone, Roger Clinton Jr., yes, the brother of Bill Clinton, and Stephen Baldwin.
Yes.
And you could see there were other brothers there too, because you could see who they looked like. They got credit in the credits, but they didn't really have a big contribution in terms of lines.
Those three were the biggest ones.
And he's the brother of Santa Claus.
And
he's
so
like, I'm the brother of Santa Claus, and they didn't believe it.
He's like, do you think this is a joke? I know, my brother is Santa Claus, but do you think he's Santa Claus? No, he really is Santa Claus. And it's so the funny thing. Look, we're taking this seriously. You're gonna sit here and tell us your brother's Santa and like getting upset with him. And it's the funniest thing ever, because they get so pissed with him. Like, they got trauma, and you gotta make fun of them. Like, what trauma do you have?
And Clinton's brother won't shut up. It's like, can you give someone else a chance? And he just keeps interrupting. He's like, we're not talking about you. Can you give someone else an opportunity? It was just well done. It was so funny. And then another part of where they tell Steven, that's not Alec. That's not Alec.
Calm down. Remember, that's not Alec. It's like, what is his problem with Alec?
So the last thing I want to mention, which is really important, you also have Kevin Spacey, as we mentioned here. He plays Clyde Archibald Northcutt. And he is a nerd, you find out, who got bullied. But in this movie is one of his best performances, where he's just this horrible efficiency expert who's supposed to assess the situation at the North Pole, but his goal is really to shut it down.
Yeah.
And he is always lurking somewhere. He's always talking into someone's ear, like you have the angel and the devil on the shoulder, the old trope. Well, he's the devil all the time on someone's shoulder talking garbage, trying to get them to turn against someone, especially Fred. And then you find out in one of the most poignant scenes in this entire movie that he was bullied. Santa said, I recognized you. And he told him who you are. And they probably called you Four-Eyed Clyde. And you just see the connection between these two grown men doing this movie. It was like an elf moment.
Yeah.
And he tells him that, spoilers here. He was put on the naughty list. He shouldn't have done it. He was wrong. And then he gives him the gift he wanted. We won't tell you what it is, but it is one of the best scenes in this entire movie. It literally brought tears to my eyes, and it literally brings tears to my eyes every single time we watch it. The acting was spot on. The writing was fantastic. The emotion, the feels, everything about this scene is just perfect. And these are things you're not expecting in this movie.
Right.
And there's tons of it in here.
Right.
So if you haven't seen Fred Claus, you're doing yourself a grave injustice. See this movie.
Yes, absolutely. It will be one of the best holiday movies you would ever see. And like you said, it does not need a sequel. It does not need a remake. It does not need a spin-off, animated or live. It does not need a revival. Leave it alone. It is perfect. I know Hollywood likes to reboot everything under the sun and is literally digging through all the movies ever made to remake and revamp and modernize. But just don't touch Fred Claus, please.
And don't listen to Rotten Tomatoes. When originally, in October of 2021, believe it or not, they had the audacity to come out, I guess, and try to give it negative press again. In 2021, they gave it a 21%, saying that it was a slew of talent is wasted, and it is a slew of talent, they're right. But they claim it's wasted and it's contrived and overly sentimental. It's not overly sentimental. It's perfect. I think the problem is that people are so jaded that something that's wholesome and fun like this, like Elf and other movies that used to be made decades and decades ago, people don't get that. And if you're the type of person that loves those type of movies and you miss them, well, just go back to 2007, return to the past now, and watch Fred Claus because you get it. It's not contrived. It's not a bad balance between slapstick humor and schmaltzy uplift. It's garbage critic rating Rotten Tomatoes you don't listen to at all.
Right, and it's so sad that they're doing this. It really is. When the wholesome movies are beginning to be seen as too sappy.
And what was hilarious, not hilarious, but it's ironic, forgive me, when you think about it, here in America, where the movie was made and released, they dogged it and talked about how bad it is. And in the UK, it was #1.
Go figure, right?
So, if this country saw the beauty in it, then we guarantee you should take a look at it. Don't listen to the reviews that are out there that are negative. They just didn't want something this wholesome and heartwarming and funny, and it's just so many ways you can describe it. But this is like one of the most perfect holiday movies ever. After I watched it the first time with Rascal, because sometimes I think you've seen it without me the first time.
I think so, first.
Yes. And once I saw it, I could see why it had become a favorite.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
definitely recommend this. You have to see it.
So if you've seen Fred Claus, and we really hope you have, let us know in the comments below. Did you love it? Did you think it was mid? Or did you hate it? We're interested in knowing what you think. And if you haven't seen it this year, watch it. It's the perfect season. Give it a watch. Come back, thank us, and let us know what you think in the comments.
And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates, weekly videos, favorite anime series, anime shows, and all things animation with a little bit of live action.
Yes, and thank you for joining us during this holiday season, taking time to share and enjoy with us. Don't forget to like the video and to share it during the season. It really helps us out a lot.
Yes. So thank you so much for watching Mask Entertainment.
And Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.